Hello everyone, welcome to Your Questions on Astrology Answered Part 3. Full list of questions can be seen in the box below. If you have questions about astrology, please continue to post below this video and I will be answering in future editions of this series. If you are new to my channel, sub below. Let's begin. My first question in this video comes from Frosty H, who says, "Hello Gina, can you please explain how does a married couple chart work together, since each person may be going through different Mahadasha? Thank you so much." Well, thank you so much, Frosty, as well. Really good question. Actually, married couples, relationship, business partners, even close friendships, we can see development over time in certain charts. One of the best techniques I've ever used is actually a Western technique called composite chart. I'm going to be posting soon new techniques like this on a new series about relationships. But back to your question, because Mahadasha changeover is very important to see. Mahadasha is actually how we are feeling in our mind for a certain period of time. That graha dominates our focus and everything. So when people get together, and as I say, this is not just marriage, this could be business partner, friendship, anything where two people are walking down that life together in some way, then one person's Mahadasha influences the other person simply because it is how you are at that time. What I've seen is actually this. When people get together, they tend to have a harmony between Mahadasha. Now, that is not always the actual case because everybody's Mahadasha affects you individually differently. But on the whole, I have seen this to actually be the case. So here's a good example. Real life. Okay, so these individuals got together. One person was in Rahu and the other was in Venus. There was a perfect harmony at that time. But then as it moved forward, Venus Mahadasha person went into Sun Mahadasha and disharmony developed. Now they did not actually split up at this time because Sun Mahadasha individual had a great deal of strength with their natal sun. That's what you have to see. How strong is that Lord for the individual? Because the stronger it is, that individual is going to be not in control of the relationship. It's not about that, but they're going to feel more steady, more able to deal with things within themselves. But had their sun been weak, then it might have been a really different story because Sun Rahu is a real disharmony. It's an absolute eclipse, isn't it? Sun Rahu. But they did not split up. Then the other person continued on in Rahu Mahadasha, but the first individual moved into Moon Mahadasha. So at this point, it became very, very difficult relationship because their moon was very weak and afflicted. So this moon was not able to deal with this Rahu energy anymore, and they did actually split up at that time. But you need to understand that people are not going to just split up because of change of Mahadasha. This cannot be the case, can it? Because if it was, then no relationship in the world would last for more than 20 years, because 20 years is a maximum of any Mahadasha period. So to summarize, I would just make a really strong point here that we have to see so much more than just Mahadasha switchover. But you need to be aware that some dynamic is changing in a relationship when one individual moves into new Mahadasha. In fact, one of the most stressful times is the Sun, Moon, Mars phase of the Mahadasha sequence. So when one person is moving from Sun to Moon to Mars, it's a very fast time, isn't it? It's Sun for 6 years, Moon 10 years, Mars 7 years. A lot of change is going on in somebody's lives. That's going to definitely impact relationships. But still, if you're destined to be together, you will. You shouldn't put so much emphasis on Mahadasha switchover. It can certainly be worked through. I hope that was helpful. Next question from EM Key. Do animals have karma? Those that are being tortured and abused, are they paying karmic debt to their abuser? Well, thank you very much indeed. It was a very important philosophical question, but it's more than that because as astrologers, we need to understand karma deeply. I'm going to use Shastra to actually answer this for you. And first of all, yes, animals do most definitely have karma, but they cannot make it. They cannot create new karmas. So when we see animals suffering, as you say, are they paying back debt? Absolutely, they are. Absolutely. But the question is, where did they get this? Human form only. You cannot get suffering karma like that in an animal body because no matter what animals do, they are just instinctive. They do not make karma. So Shastras give us so many insights here. There is one particular verse that really sticks into my mind. Now, I forget the exact source, but I think it was Mahabharata. It goes like this. This life you are a king of all you survey. Next life you spend your entire existence on the tip of a blade of grass. It's very evocative, isn't it? It shows us very, very clearly that human form is something which is rare, and human form is something which we should be very careful with because in an instant you can go from even a king to a tiny, insignificant insect. That's a fact. So, Shastra also tells us something very important about non human beings. And again, sorry, I have not got exact source here, but there is a verse that definitely says that human beings should treat non-human beings, animals, as their own children. That's a very clear Shastric injunction. We should protect them, we should care. And if we see them suffering, as you say, we have a definite obligation, a dharmic obligation to help. And if we just walk on and say, well, that's their karma, just as if I saw like a human being suffering and I did not intervene, we take on their karma ourselves. So we have to be really careful here. So to summarize, animals are definitely suffering, some animals, for past life misdeed in human form, but our obligation is to fix that, is to help them immediately to stop that suffering as much as we can. Obviously, in the world there is so much going on and there's so little that we can do, but every time we have an opportunity, maybe give to charity or to intervene in some way to help animals, we should definitely do so to help ourselves. Otherwise, as I say, if we see the suffering and we do nothing, we incur some of the karma. So it's a very intense cycle, isn't it, karma? And I hope that was somewhat helpful. Next question from Dave Mann. Can you talk a little bit about Gandanta planets? Thank you for the question. I can indeed, because this is where we have any planet or even ascendant at 29 degrees of certain signs, where water sign changes into fire. So 29 degrees Pisces, 0 Aries, 29 degrees Cancer, 0 Leo, and 29 degrees Scorpio, 0 Sagittarius. So if you have any planets or ascendant at that degree, and you must have accurate time of birth to be sure, don't forget, then my goodness, you've got a Gandanta planet and it's going to cause you some issues in life, but it contains the most amazing potential. Let's think about this. So this means that you have a critical degree planet, really, doesn't it? Because any planet in any sign at the 29 or 0 is a critical degree. So let's just have a look at that first. A critical degree means that it's a really old or a very young planet situation. So just like when you're getting really, really old, like in your 80s, 90s, maybe even 100, whatever it is, you've seen it all, you've done it all, and you're just a little bit worn out, right? Well, that's how the 29-degree planet feels. And 0 degrees is just like a newborn baby. It's not easy to be in either condition. You are completely helpless because when you're really old, you're so old to do anything. And when you're 0 degrees, as it were, a newborn baby, you're just helpless. You don't know where you are, what's happening. A 0 degree planet is a bit like you've been dumped in the middle of a new country. You've never been there before. You're on your own. You don't speak the language. You don't know anything about it. You don't know whether to walk straight ahead or walk backwards or what to do. You're a complete lost situation. Okay, so 0 degrees means completely lost as a newborn baby, and 29 degrees means so old, done it all, done all the karmas, worn out, can't do much more. So when you think of it in that way, what happens when you add fire-water combination? It gets even more critical, doesn't it? Because when you have fire, water, there is no way they can get on together, right? Because when you put water on fire, it gets rid of the fire. It kills the fire. When you put fire beneath water, it has a steam effect, which has a good element to it, obviously, because you can have power from that steam, and I'll be coming back to that, but it still evaporates water. So fire, water do not get on. So what happens when you have any planet at these Gandanta positions, these critical degrees between water and fire? Well, first of all, what you have is a situation where that planet cannot manifest easily its highest potential. But at the same time, there is a magic with these degrees that is really very special. It seems a bit contradictory. Let me explain. Have you ever had an emergency situation in your life where you have to drop everything, drop whatever you're doing, and just deal with that situation? Well, that's what that Gandanta planet feels like. And it's just waiting for the moment, maybe set off by a transit or MAHADASHA or some other factor that will make it manifest its highest potential. Because when we face emergency situations, have you ever surprised yourself? Oh my goodness, I didn't think I could deal with that. I didn't think I could actually make that happen, but I did. Or sometimes emergencies make us fall to pieces, one or the other. So you have to look at sign position aspects, everything, but in some way that planet, that Gandanta planet, is in an emergency state, and it's waiting for the moment to manifest its highest potential. And it can do so because it's at that moment of moving into fire, or it's just come into fire sign and it's in a bit of a startled state. So what tends to happen is, here's a good example. Let's say you've got maybe Cancer 29 degrees Jupiter. So that's an exalted guru, exalted Jupiter. It should manifest in the higher state, but because it is a critical degree and a Gandanta degree, Jupiter, right? It's not always going to be easy to bring out that potential until the emergency situation comes and you surprise yourself. You come to the highest potential of that Jupiter. You develop into a new person. It's a bit like a metamorphosis. And when does that happen? Mahadasha of that Jupiter. Maybe the Bhukti, but mostly Mahadasha. It won't be easy. It's going to really test you to the absolute limits, but it has enormous potential. So these Gandanta planets, these Gandanta points in your chart contain enormous potential which you should not be afraid of. It's a challenge for sure, but it's a chance to transform yourself into something more powerful, because don't forget, water can evaporate from fire, but it can become steam. Steam powers engines, powers you forward. It's an actual karmic transformation at this point. I hope that was somewhat helpful. So my next question from Rising Vibrations is, what is the difference between different styles of charts, North and South Indian? Which should I use? Well, thank you very much for your question. And here I have a Western chart, North Indian chart, South Indian chart. First of all, for any of you coming from the Western system for a long time, please use North Indian chart. It's much simpler for you and it actually works much easier because Western is a fixed house where we have here ascendant, here seventh house, fourth house, 10th house, whereas here it is fixed house but slightly different direction. So Lagna here, fourth house, seventh house, 10th house. South Indian is, however, a sign based chart. So there are these little boxes here that are Pisces is always this box, Aries here, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer going in this direction. And when you use one of these for a long time, you will just see a chart that way. Your particular brain actually will start to locate things in that type of system. So it's really hard to swap between the two, I find. You mostly tend to stick with one. So which one to go for? North Indian I prefer. Why? Because I like to see Kendra sort of sticking out there, yeah, and facing me, because Kendra houses first, fourth, seventh, 10th are the most important karmas. So I like to see them clearly, squarely facing me in this way, whereas that is not possible South Indian. However, South Indian chart has the Rasi aspects. That is something which is not shown here. So there is no best chart to go for. Which suits your brain, how you feel really at ease when you read a chart is the most important factor. So which is your style? Stick with that style. I hope that was a little bit helpful. Now, in this section, I'm going to combine two questions together. Miss Ray asks, does Donald Trump's chart show that he was a good person in his last life? If so, why has he turned out the way he has? A further question by Gold Lotus asks, if there are exalted or dignified planets in a KALSARP loop, does it nullify bad effects of KALSARP yoga? Well, thank you very much, both of you, for those questions. I'm going to combine them because Donald Trump's chart does indeed contain a KALSARP yoga. Let's have a look. So here we have Donald Trump's chart. Now, I know according to some people it's not a true KALSARP because Sun is 2 degrees away from Rahu, Moon is 1 degree outside of K2, but many astrologers would agree with me this is definitely a KALSARP loop, and there's the big power vortex. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. First of all, let's answer about him having done good karmas. I don't know where you got that from. I was intrigued by your question and I went straight away to have a look at his D60 chart. And I'm not going to show it here, but I'll just let you know he has Jupiter in Virgo rising in the D60 ascendant. That would definitely indicate that he has done some dharmic action, some good karmas. And so we have it in the same sign in the D1 retrograde. That is mighty powerful. Why? Because it's the 5th house lord of past good deeds. So he has definitely performed some maybe charity work or giving or helping people. He's done some great good karma, and this has made him wealthy, fortunate, successful now. Mightily wealthy. Actually, it's retrograde super factor there. So yes, he has done some definite good deeds, but when we look at his past life in his actual Rasi chart, Moon K2 indicates past life circumstance in Scorpio. That's quite scary situations. He might have been in a war zone. He could have had a loss of mother. He could have had loss of homeland. He could have had trauma situations. A great deal of insecurity there. Saturn in Cancer mirrors this insecurity. So I don't think he was having a happy situation, but whatever it was, he faced it in a dharmic way and he did good deeds. That's what is probably shown here. Now, as for making judgments about his personality now, you see, Vedic astrology doesn't do that. There are no good or bad people. It's just about deeds which you do. And you may be judging him as a bad person, other people as a good person. Why is it happening? Why is Donald Trump having such hate and such love? Why is he attracting it? Well, here's the answer bringing in KALASARPA. Because when you have a KALASARPA yoga, you are a vortex of attraction. It's like a vortex of energy. This is completely empty and it attracts people. Now, Donald Trump has more than a vortex of KALASARPA. He's got Mars. Yoga Karaka for Leo in the first house. So powerful. He sucks in energy from other people to either love him or to hate him, one of the two. KALASARPA often has that issue. So he's a mighty powerful person here with great success, great prominence, all shown in his chart. By the way, he's in a pretty tricky period coming up because Rahu is about to go to his return there. So things are really churning up for Donald Trump, that's for sure. But either way, he's got a mighty powerful chart. So back to your specific question then about KALASARPA and having exalted planets. Donald Trump doesn't have that really. He has Saturn not so well placed, Venus okay, Mercury own sign, Jupiter not that well placed by sign, but powerful for sure. Moon debilitated. Mars though, absolutely. Yoga Karika rising, so powerful. So he doesn't have that much power, just placement is very, very strong. So if you've got a lot of really powerful planets, KALASARPA, is that going to make it worse or better? Neither. It's simply going to give you more power from the actual KALASARPA. It could be very good. Because KALASARPA, as I say, gives you this vortex of energy. I believe there's something known as Trump derangement syndrome. Have you heard about it? Where people become deranged by him. They just can't stop posting about him. They just can't stand the guy, and it just drives them potty. I believe that Boris Johnson also, there's a Boris Johnson derangement syndrome. So I don't think Boris Johnson's got a KALASARPA, but he has got Rahu 10th house. So maybe it's Rahu derangement syndrome. I don't know. But I will say this much for sure. When anybody has KALASARPA, and I've seen this, you go through great fluctuations in your life. Really powerful situations and then not so good. Rise and then fall. But without any shadow of doubt, people are attracted to you in a very good way or very negative way. So it's a very powerful situation. Actually, Nigel Farage chart on my channel, check below. He has this powerful KALASARPA as well. And people either love him or hate him as well. So KALASARPA means that you have a vortex of energy. Use it. It's not a negative thing at all. I hope that was somewhat helpful. Next question from Robert Green Carter, who asks, how do you interpret a planet that sits in a different sign from the house it is in? For example, if the moon is in Pisces, which is a sign of the 5th house, but the actual graha is sitting in the 4th house. Well, thank you very much. A very interesting question. And I presume you are talking about your bhava chahlit chart, or it may be a Western chart, but it's a chart in which the midheaven is taking the 10th house cusp. And so, therefore, we have unequal houses. I'm best going to answer this with an example chart. So let's have a look at Marilyn Monroe's chart. So Marilyn Monroe's birth chart then, from a Rasi or equal house, sign for a house chart, normal Vedic chart, and the bhava chahlit, an equal house system. Now, many people's bhava chahlit has a lot more change than Marilyn Monroe's chart does. So only one factor moves, and that actually makes it easy for us. It's Jupiter. Natal or Rasi chart, we have Jupiter, Mars in Aquarius in the 8th house. Bhava chahlit, it's gone into the 7th house in Aquarius still, but Capricorn is that Lord there. So it's moon near to Jupiter now in that 7th house, a completely different emphasis. So let's just focus on one definite factor in her life. So let's consider that she never knew who her father was. She never met him. She never even knew his name. Father is, of course, ninth house. Same sign here in these two charts. So Jupiter is her ninth house lord, but in a completely different situation. Jupiter in her Rasi chart is in the eighth house. This makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Because the Lord of the ninth house has gone 12th to itself, indicating loss of father. Furthermore, Lord of the 10th house, which is father's name, who he is in the world, is in her eighth house as well. So she never even knew his name. This makes perfect sense, absolutely. But in the unequal house, we have this ninth house lord in the seventh house. It doesn't work as well. This is the relationship house, or in any case, it faces you where you know the people in your life. It just does not work as well. So finally, let's have a look at a Mahadasha reading, the most important one probably, her death, because she died on the 5th of August, that should say, 1962 in Jupiter Mars Mahadasha with Saturn in a Sati position here. She was known to be very depressed, and Sati would give some element of that, but it's more than that, isn't it? Because she was in Jupiter Mars Mahadasha. Jupiter Mars are in her eighth house together. I mean, that couldn't be more obvious, could it, in the actual chart itself? So Jupiter Mars together in the Rasi chart would indicate sudden death, sudden trauma. But please remember that when you have Mahadasha of your eighth house planets, people do not often die then. There are many other factors, Varga charts, but we are just comparing these two charts now. However, when we look at her Jupiter in her Bhava chahlit chart, it's in the seventh house of relationship, near to her moon, indicating some supportive relationship, but she didn't have that. She was definitely not in any supportive relationship for some time, and she was feeling very, very low at this time. Some people say very lonely indeed, so that was not the case. Furthermore, she was in a Jupiter return, and a Jupiter return into her eighth house, giving a deep psychological factor there. A very disturbing factor is far more going to make a lot of sense in this overdose than the seventh house here. So finally then, just going back to your original question, I would say don't worry or have any concerns about this Bhava chahlit chart having same or rather different signs in same house, and what does it all mean? Because really this is only for Mahadasha, and then a small proportion of that Mahadasha. And as I've shown you here, Rasi chart wins out mostly every time in this interpretation. Sometimes there may be something there, but I've shown here that it's not always very obvious. So stay with the Rasi, stay with the equal house, stay with your Varga chart. So many karmas there to explore. I hope that was helpful. Next, a question from Artie, who says, what's your opinion on tarot or oracle card readings? Should they be combined with Vedic astrology? Do they add another dimension to the reading or not? Well, first of all, Artie, I'm going to answer this from my own real experience, because I have been using tarot and giving tarot readings actually from a very early age as well. And in fact, I Ching, a marvelous Chinese oracle, I mean, just an amazing oracle. I have become adept at using these, and I probably overuse them, but yes. And in fact, I honestly thought about putting it into my channel at some point, but don't worry everybody, I won't be complicating things. There is so much more on the ocean of Jyotish I want to bring out at this time. But if you would like me to, post below and I may do it at some time. But here's the thing, because I have this experience, let me give you a heartfelt answer here. So first of all, what is oracle? Oracle, like tarot, I Ching, or whatever, is simply a tool to access universal energy, because when you ask a question, the answer is already there, but you don't know it. You don't know the answer. That's why you've got the question, right? So you need the tool to draw out the exact answer. But you have to be very skilled. It's a form of occult knowledge, right? You have to be very skilled in knowing these symbols, in understanding it. It takes years and years and years of practice, many questions, many readings for you to really understand them. So very often you need to go to somebody more experienced. But here's the thing, it's not a contradiction to astrology. In fact, in the Western system, in the ancient Western system, like medieval and up to 1600s, and not the modern stuff, because you know how I feel about that. If you've been listening to my videos, it's just gone a bit crazy, basically, with the real Western astrology, just up to Saturn included, just with the nodes of the moon, knowing about the house lords, really reading it very much like a Vedic chart. They had a system called Horary astrology, where you would actually go and say, where is my ring hidden? When am I going to get married? Should I plant my seeds on this day or that day? What they would do is they would draw a chart for the moment you asked the question. And they were so skilled they could find the answer in that chart. One such famous astrologer was William Lilly, who lived in England 1620s, and he wrote a book full of these horary questions. I've just popped upstairs in my library to actually get this book. I'm going to read to you. 29th of August, 1646. A dog is missing where he may be found. He drew up the horoscope. He found the dog. Here's another question. Money lost. Who stole it? Is it recoverable? 24th of May, 1647, 5 p.m. Let's have another one, shall we? Isn't it interesting? Here's a lovely one. A servant decamped. Which way he has gone when returned. So, my goodness. They didn't have tarot cards. Well, yes, they did. They did have tarot cards, but a skilled astrologer could answer exactly using these techniques. So let me tell you, in this way, there is no contradiction, because actually what is a birth chart? It's a moment in time containing your whole destiny. It's very similar to an oracle, except of course it contains all of your D charts, all of your karmas, where you are going, all of your MAHADASHAs. Vedic astrology, you need to know who you are, where you're going, but you can make use of tarot, you can make use of I Ching, you can make use of so many oracles. There is no contradiction whatsoever. Use them both. That's my answer. I hope that was helpful. Next question from Geet Sounds Sweet. If Mars and Jupiter are in close conjunction in Virgo for Aries ascendant, are they forming Vipreet Raj Yoga? Thank you very much indeed for your question. But as I understand this yoga, it is the Lord of the sixth in the sixth, Lord of the eighth in the eighth, Lord of the 12th in the 12th. The actual Lord needs to be strong in his own sign to defeat these 6th, 8th, and 12th house situations. Now, I do have to accept that there are other astrologers who would disagree. I think Vedic astrologers are 50-50 on this one. Let's have a look at your case and let's just see why Vipreet Raj Yoga is formed and what it really is. Here is your chart just to help illustrate in a very basic way. Aries rising, Virgo 6, Pisces 12. You've got the Lord of your first house in your 6th house, Mars. That's a very strong placement because Mars is strong there to help you, definitely. Mars does very well in this 6th house. He can defeat lots of unfavorable factors for you, for sure there. But having Jupiter, Lord of your 12th house in your 6th, is not, as I consider it, a Vipreet Raj Yoga. Why? Because he is in a actual 7th house from himself, from his own house. So he's actually weakened rather than stronger. So to have a true Vipreet Raj Yoga actually in your circumstance, you would need to have Jupiter in the 12th house in Pisces. Why would this be? Because in this case, you would have the Lord of a Dusana house in his own house. And only the Lord of these difficult houses can contain, can change those difficult circumstances. No other Lord, not the Lord of the sixth, not the Lord of the eighth. You need that Lord of the house itself. So what would therefore happen would be that the Jupiter would contain isolation. You might enjoy it, would help you contain expenses and secret enemies also. If you had Mars, Lord of your eighth house, in his own house, he would help if you had accidents, mishaps, if you had sudden events, maybe losses business wise. He would help you come out victorious. Only Mars would be able to actually do that. I really do think you need the Lord there. Mercury also in your sixth house would help contain all of those sixth house issues like conflicts, litigation, and open enemies. So, summarizing them, a true Vipreet Raj Yoga needs the Lord of the Dusana house in his own house for strongest perfect impact. I hope that was helpful. Next question from Imani90, who asks, why in astrology are Aries, Gemini, Leo, Virgo considered barren or sterile signs? Well, thank you for that question indeed, and I'm going to answer it for you, showing you which are the barren signs, which are the fruitful signs, and showing you how to read them in a chart. Let's go. So, a table to help you understand how these signs become fruitful or less so fruitful. Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio are the most fruitful signs because they are water signs. Water gives life. So when the scientists went to Mars, they were looking for one sign only, a drop of water. All they wanted to see was a drop of water because that would indicate that there was potential for life. So when you have Cancer rising, obviously Scorpio, fifth house, Pisces rising, Cancer, fifth house, Scorpio rising, Pisces, fifth house. So these are the fifth houses that have the most potential for fertility. Semi-fruitful or semi-fertile are Taurus, Libra, Aquarius. Why is this? Because of Venus factor. Venus rules Taurus, Libra. Venus is sexual intercourse. Venus is reproduction. Aquarius is where Venus is strong, but also Shani is strong in Libra. Semi-barren now, much less fertile. Aries, Sagittarius, Capricorn. Aries, fire sign, Sagittarius, fire sign. It should be obvious. Fire destroys water. Capricorn is also sign of the graveyard. Oh, by the way, another factor is that, of course, Aries is war and Sagittarius is the battlefield, not conducive to childbirth, you could say. Capricorn is, of course, the graveyard, like I say, but it's more than that. It's because Mars is exalted here as well. That's the warrior sign. But the most barren or less fruitful signs are actually Mercury signs, Gemini, Virgo. Why? Because Mercury is asexual. Mercury is not sexual. You know, Mercury is a bit like a child. Mercury is a bit mischievous, naughty boy, you know. He's not a sexual being. He's more like a child, though he does absolutely represent high intellectual factors, but not physicality. So these are the most barren. But Leo is exceptionally so because Leo is the strongest fire factor. Sun itself absolutely destroys water and fertility. But I want to show you with some horoscopes here how, although this is a very important judgment, it is not the final say at all. So starting with Marilyn Monroe, famous actress, she has Scorpio, fifth house, Cancer rising. So a very fertile fifth house, but no planets there. But where has the Lord gone? Into the eighth house. Yes, it's in Aquarius though, which is actually a semi-fertile, but she had no children. However, she did get pregnant a lot. She had many miscarriages and I believe some abortions also. So she didn't actually have a live child, but she did get pregnant. There was fertility shown there. So next, Boris Johnson. Can we see fertility here? Capricorn ruling the fifth house shows a semi-barren situation, but that's not enough. You have to see where the Lord has gone. Lord is in Multracone, extremely strong in a semi-fertile, much more fertile sign, Aquarius. Retrograde, very, very strong. He's got, I think, 4 or 5 kids, maybe 6 now. For sure, he's got a bit of controversy over how many children he has. Why is that? Because the Lord of the fifth is in the sixth. There's been even a bit of litigation, I think, over one of his children there that he had outside of marriage. So there we go. There's the conflict, but there is the children also. Next, Queen Elizabeth II of England, who has 4 children. She has got Taurus, 5th house, which is semi-fertile. So that's a fairly good, strong sign if we can confirm with Venus. Venus is in Aquarius, so that's another strong factor. So she has got 4 children. Finally, a lady of 61 years of age who has never had children. Scorpio rising, Pisces, 5th house. K2 is there, Pisces, so some loss there. As far as I know, she has never had a pregnancy, but I can't be absolutely certain there. But for sure, she has Jupiter, Lord of that 5th house, in a very low fertile sign, Sagittarius. So that concludes fertility and barren signs. I hope that was helpful once again. So that ends another series of questions, everybody. I hope that was useful to you all. Sub below if you haven't already subbed to my channel. Coming up soon, more videos on Vedic astrology. God bless you all and goodbye for now.